Welcome to the Nerdstalgic podcast with your host, the Ginger Bookworm. Nerdstalgic with the Ginger Bookworm. Nerdstalgic with the Ginger Bookworm.
Howdy folks, and welcome back to another exciting episode of the Nerdstalgic podcast with your host, me, Luke. I hope you're doing well. Hope you're all good, as always. Today, I'm going to do a really, really exciting topic, one I've been wanting to talk about for ages. I just had to wait for the movie to come out on streaming because I didn't get to watch it in cinemas. I wanted to watch it in cinemas. I really, really did, but I either just didn't have the time or my chronic illness got in the way and I couldn't go to cinema. And not as that, it being a 2-hour-long movie, it stresses me out, and it's not something I'm going to get into, but it just meant that I just couldn't go. So I had to wait till it comes out in streaming, but no harm, no foul. I can sit in the comfort of my own home and enjoy it, and I don't have to stress or worry about. But the film I'm going to talk about today is Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. I've been calling it Into the Multiverse of Madness. Apparently, according to Disney Plus, what I'm looking at now, it's Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. I prefer Into. It just sounds better and flows better with off the tongue. But I'm not Disney. I don't make up the names. This one's going to be a spoiler discussion. I did think about today, because I'm recording this on the Wednesday when it was released on Disney Plus. You'll be hearing it tomorrow on Thursday, or today on Thursday, as I should say. But this is going to be a spoiler one. I did think about maybe not doing spoilers because I don't like doing spoiler discussions. I don't like spoiling things for an old film or like a new film or new game or whatever. But I figured this film's been out for a while. If you're going to watch it, you watch it by now. And if you're listening to this, potentially you've watched the film already. From what I've found from a lot of the reviews I've done in the past, whether it be video games, movies, or TV shows, a lot of people have said to me, "Oh, I've skipped, say, the Book of Boba Fett episode because I haven't watched it yet. But once I watch it, I'll come back." So I figured either way, if you listen to this now, you've most likely watched the film already, and if you're not listening to this, then you haven't watched it. So I just figured do a spoiler discussion. It's easier, it flows better that way, and that way I can just sort of give my initial thoughts first instead of have to censor myself because of worry of spoilers. One thing I will also say, I'm a bit scatterbrained at the moment, primarily because we've been Disney and Marvel have really spoiled us today. As some people might know, on the Wednesday on Disney Plus, that's when new shows get released. So today we had the release of Doctor Strange 2, which I watched in the morning, and I'm going to talk about it in a minute. And we also had the season finale of Obi-Wan, season 1. So that is just that was incredible. So I can't wait to record an episode hopefully on the Thursday while you're listening to this, and do a quick sort of wrap of the season overall. So that's that was great. But also we had episode 3 of Miss Marvel, which again, Miss Marvel is killing at the moment. Miss Marvel is amazing. I'm actually enjoying Miss Marvel a lot more than Moon Knight, and I'm enjoying it a lot more than Obi-Wan Kenobi, which I know sounds sort of blasphemous to say, but it's true. But when that show is finished and when the season's done, I will talk about my feelings on that. But we've been spoiled today, so I'm a bit scatterbrained. I've had so much content that I've digested that if I'm a bit scatterbrained, or if I lose my track or lose my train of thought, you know why. As always, I have a list of bullet points that I try to follow. But if I do waffle, if I do go off a tangent a bit, I do apologise. But this is my first initial thoughts of what I thought of Doctor Strange 2. So if it seems a bit scatterbrained, if I seem a bit, wired and a bit crazy, a bit wigged out, that's why. Also, it's hot. We don't really get the sun here in the UK, and we've had it a lot, and I'm dying. I'm a winter baby. I just don't do well in the summer. So there's a lot of factors against me today, but I'm going to try my best to keep it streamlined and not waffle too much. And the first way I'm going to put that into effect is I'm going to get on with it, and we're going to get straight into my feelings on this film overall, and then we're going to get into the characters, and then we're going to get into the outstanding visuals, final thoughts, special mentions, and then we're going to wrap it up nicely. So if that sounds like your cup of tea, and more than likely, as I've said, you've probably already watched this before. Get tucked in, or get untucked, get dressed, get not get dressed, get chilled, have a drink. If it's hot, have something cool. If it's cold, have something warm. You know how it works by now. Get relaxed, get chill, and let's get into it, shall we? Come on, then let's go, guys. So, my thoughts and feelings. First of all, I just want to say before I begin, this is my opinions, this is my thoughts, my feelings, this is what I think of the film. Again, if you agree or disagree, that's completely fine. But I'm just giving you my initial first impressions of watching the movie a couple of hours ago this morning. But again, I'll get onto it in the end. But if you agree or disagree, by all means, hit me up on my Twitter at nerdstalgic_pod and you can let me know. But this is my overall thoughts and feelings. Honestly, completely, blatantly, I love this film. Generally, it's the best movie of Phase 4, completely. Black Widow was fun, but I couldn't really get into it. It's the same with Shang-Chi. I preferred Shang-Chi a lot more, The Legend of the Ten Rings, a lot more than I did Black Widow. It was more interesting, but again, it didn't hook me in. As a lot of people I know actually really, really liked Shang-Chi. I liked it, but it wasn't the best. It didn't blow me away. I thought it was all right. Then you got Eternals. Again, if you've watched my second ever video second ever episode, audio episode, bleh. See, scatterbrained already. We ain't just begun. If you've watched my second ever episode, and you listen to my Eternals review, you know that I liked it, but I just felt like it was too long, and like they really should have done it as a TV show first, sort of introduce the characters, let you actually care for the characters, and then once you've got that sort of emotional connection to the characters, then do the big long 2 hour long, almost 3 hour long movie, talking and sort of getting you invested in these characters. I just thought it was too long winded, but I liked what it was doing because it started to change the game. Like one thing that I want to say about the Phase 4 so far is that it's different. It's changing the rules of what we've seen prior. We have been sort of programmed as MCU fans to expect X, Y, and Z. With expect the wholeheartedness, where you've got like DC is very dark and very sort of depressive, where Marvel is very light and upbeat. They have some dark tones, but it's very jokey, it's very silly, it's very much just a comic book classic sort of movie. But Phase 4 starting to change that. Phase 4 started to become a lot more emotional, starting to be more sort of dark theme based, sort of deal with the real world precautions of being a superhero. And we saw that in the TV show. We saw it in Black Widow. We saw it in Shang-Chi, and about the way the world is, and so on and so forth. And again with the Eternals, we saw it with them, how they've been alive for so long, and they've saw humanity rise and fall so many times, and they can't do anything. So it's going this more mature sort of route, the whole sort of aspect of like, okay, so now we have superheroes. Now we're in a world where superheroes are the quote unquote norm. How does the world react to the snap? How does the world react to aliens? How does it react to seeing superheroes? You know what I mean? And how does being a superhero take its toll? And we saw it a bit here and there, and we saw it with Tony Stark, and we saw a bit with Captain America and Thor, but it's never really been a focus of just a movie. They tried to do it with like Iron Man 2. I quite like Iron Man 2, but it didn't quite work so much then. And Iron Man 3, again, they tried it, but they didn't go full on with it. The whole PTSD and all that, they went halfway there, but they never sort of went all the way, as a lot of fans wish they would have. But the point of them trying to get at is the fact of in Phase 4, they're going for a lot more realistic. They're going for a lot more sort of comic book accurate vibe, and it's a lot darker but very sort of more emotional. And this is what I like about this phase so far. It's the emotional stage. It's the gain and loss stage, and I'll explain more what I mean of that in a minute when I get on to talking about the film. So yeah, Black Widow, Shang-Chi, and Eternals, all right, but they weren't like blowing me out of the water. Spider-Man was again the first film to actually really, really blow me out of the water. That film, from what was shown, and the different characters and the multiverse, and like Tobey Maguire, and we had Andrew Garfield as well as Tom Holland. We got them back together, all the different Spider-Men, our favourites, and we got our favourite villains from said movies, said universes, and it really just it was not just fun, but it was also again like quite dark, quite emotional. If you see in the movie, you know what happens in it. That makes it quite dark. I didn't I don't did I do a review on it? I don't know if I did do a review on it. I can't remember, but I remember talking to a friend about it, and I said to a friend of like, this is the movie where um, Peter Parker goes from being a child to being a man very quickly. Things happen in his life where he's no longer like the first three movies is Peter Parker going from Peter the boy to finally at the end of it is Peter the man. The guy that works at the Daily Bugle, the guy that takes the photos, the guy that sort of lives on his own in a apartment, can't really have a relationship. He is now adult Peter Parker, and that's the character that we know of from the comic books and all that. No longer he is the teenager. So it's going the very mature route. It's going the very adult route. It took 3 movies to get there, but the 3 movies were all perfect and quite well done, that they took you on that emotional journey. And that's what I mean, is the fact of it's taking you on a different path, and it's a path that we're not used to in the MCU. That's why I don't think a lot of these films have done as well as they probably would. People are not liking them is because it's not what they're used to. It doesn't feel unique. You know what I mean? It doesn't feel of what a lot of people have said to me. It just feels different. They don't like change, and don't get me wrong, I don't like change either. I hate change, especially when it's something that I love. But in terms of the MCU, for me, if they kept doing what they knew worked, for me as a fan, as a hardcore fan, it would get stale to me. So I want to see the difference. I want to see the gradual change. I want to see these characters change and evolve. I want to see them get moody and get depressive. I want to see them in the happy times, and I want to see them in their darkest of times. If you read comics, you know that happens all the time. You'll have a character that have loads of story arcs where they're the hero, they save the day, and then you have the story arcs of like what I'm going to talk about in the comic books, like the House of M with the Scarlet Witch, where she has her worst moment ever, and if you know what happens in the House of M, you know that's a Scarlet Witch at her most sort of down and sad and powerful. And then, so for me as a hardcore fan, it's not something different because I'm used to this happening in the comic books all the time. The stories change. The arcs get depressive, they get darker, they get more mature, they take you to another level of the character, they take you deeper into the character, and I like that. So that being said, we've gone through all these movies. We finally got round to Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness. Here we are. And as I've said, out of the movies that have come so far, I love it. It's dark, it's funny, but also it's mature, it's scary. Like, I should I shouldn't have been surprised when Sam Raimi was reported that he was going to direct this movie. I shouldn't have been surprised that this movie was going to be a little bit Evil Dead. This movie wasn't, was going to be a little bit, bit creepy, especially when you've got like the likes of, you've got the mystical arts, you've got Doctor Strange, you've got the Scarlet Witch, you've got all these other sort of elements, the multiverse. It wouldn't surprise me that he was going to go full sort of spooky, creepy, crazy. And from what I heard when the movie come out, that's the kind of route it went. And from watching it, I had a friend of mine who said, yeah, it's a great movie, but I couldn't take the kids to see this film. This is not a film you can take kids to see. And I agree, this is the first MCU movie that I would happily say, yeah, don't bring the kids to see this film. Don't bring the little ones. This is not for the little ones. This is for the hardcore fans. And maybe for a lot of fans, that's a bit, again, it's different. It's not used, usually when an MCU movie comes out, no matter what film it is, you could take the kids to see it and they could watch it. But with this one, I feel like it would give some kids nightmares because there are some parts where I'm like, bloody hell, this is straight out of Evil Dead. You know what I mean? This is straight out of that. And obviously Sam Raimi did Spider-Man as well. The best Spider-Man. One of our my favourites. I quite like Andrew Garfield as well, but one of the ones that I grew up with, which is Tobey Maguire. Sorry, a bit dry mouth. Hold on. Oh, I needed that. But yeah, Tobey Maguire. That amazing superhero movie, and it's a shame he never got to do the 4th film. But that being said, like this film, Doctor Strange, it just takes it to another level, and it just works. It works so well. Yes, it's dark. Yes, it's creepy. Yes, it's spooky. but it just works, so that's my first initial thoughts coming out of it straight away. My first initial thoughts, it's the best of the movies so far in the phase 4. It's creepy, it's spooky, it's funny, the visuals are impressive, the characters are amazing, and I want more. I don't just want more Marvel movies. I don't just want more MCU movies like this. I want other sort of even DC or even comic book movies to kind of follow this path where it's like take the characters in a direction that is a lot more sort of, how can I explain it, a lot more sort of darker. We've been dark, but what I mean, like, take it to the creepy route. I want more of the horror vibes. I'm not saying you have to scare people or you have to freak people out, but you just, if you're dealing with the mystical arts, you're going to go to dimensions and you're going to go to realities where things aren't as they seem. You're going to see and experience things, especially like I said, when you're messing with the dark hold, and you're messing with curses and hexes and magic, that things are gonna get fucked up. Pardon my language. And I want that. I want to see a lot more crazy, fucked up stuff. Yes, it's the MCU. Yes, it's Marvel, but I just want to see more of it. So that's my overall thoughts. Coming out of it is that I just want to see more. I love it so far, so good, and I hope that Thor Love and Thunder will be just as good. I have no doubt it will be, because a lot of people, the thing is with Taika Waititi, is a lot of people take Taika Waititi as the kind of, he's the comedy guy. He does nothing but jokes and comedy. But if you watch a lot of his older movies, are actually quite dark. Jojo Rabbit, for example. Jojo Rabbit, right, is a very heartwarming, very sort of funny, silly movie, wrapped around Nazi Germany and the colour of the Jews and all that. And again, all very depressive and sad sort of connotations. But it's done in such a way where it's a joke. It's silly until we get to that scene. And I won't ruin that scene. If you watch that movie, you know what scene I'm talking about. All I'm going to say is shoes. And hopefully, if you've seen the movie, you know what I mean by that phrase, shoes. But that's a very dark, that's a film that's been very funny, very dark. And then we're bringing it back to the MCU, where he did Thor Ragnarok. Again, a very heartwarming, silly movie. Thor's cracking jokes, but it's also, Thor loses an eye. Thor's father dies. Thor kills his sister. Thor loses his homeworld. Thor loses a lot. He loses a lot of things. He loses a lot of people. He loses a lot, there's a lot of loss in that movie. There's a lot of sadness in the movie. If you really break down that movie and you take the comedy away, that film goes from being a comedy to a drama. It's just because he put his comedy spin on it that it's funny. But if you took the comedy out, it's actually a really sad film that he loses a lot. And this is the thing with Taika Waititi that people misunderstand. People see him as the comedy director when actually he is the guy who makes sad moments comedic. And that, I'm not doing him justice, but like, if you've seen his other movies, What We Do in the Shadows, and I can't pronounce his other one, but Sam Neill was in it and he did a fantastic job. But a lot of these movies have these sort of tones, so I have no doubt if you're going to do Gore the God Butcher and you're going to do the death of gods, the trailers make it out to see very bombastic, very silly, very Thor Ragnarok, but I have a feeling, I have an inkling, and I'm willing to bet money on it, that Thor Love and Thunder is going to be another sort of drama. It's going to be a drama with the facade of comedy. That there's going to be a loss in it. There's going to be sadness. There's going to be death. There's going to be heartwarming parts. There's going to be, I bet you, there's going to be a part that's going to make you cry. And I have a feeling I know what that part might be, but I'm not going to spoil it for anybody who hasn't read any of the comic books. So I'm not going to ruin it for anybody. But I have a feeling I know what that part might be. Right, but I do have a feeling that next movie is going to be on not on the level of Doctor Strange, but it's going to be more mature. It doesn't look it, but I have a feeling it will be. I have faith in Taika Waititi that he's going to take it there. And if I'm right, and if my theory is right, then that just means all the rest of the MC, hopefully, from this point on, with Doctor Strange moving on to Thor and so on, that it follows that path. I have a feeling it will. So I have my fingers crossed. So that's my overall thoughts. I know I went off on a bit of a side quest here and there on my overall thoughts going into it. But let's get into the characters now, shall we? So actually no, sorry. Let's get into the story. All right. So as I mentioned, this is the first sort of real sort of horror movie that's ever been done in the MCU. Um, I haven't seen anything like it before, and like I had no doubt that Sam Raimi wasn't going to do a good job, and not just do a good job, but also the fact of he wasn't, he was going to be mystical. Now he was going to take it in a very sort of Evil Dead sort of route. Especially when I found out that Kevin Feige basically gave him free reign, because usually on an MCU project, Kevin Feige sort of gives an overview. He kind of comes in, sees what you're doing, make sure you're on track, make sure the story's following sort of the path we want it to go, and sort of has somewhat of a handle on the creative process. On this one, I read that in this film, he basically gave Sam Raimi full reins of like, this is the story we want to tell. This is how we need it to fit into to carry on with the rest of the MCU. But apart from that, creatively, go nuts. So as soon as I found that out, I knew we was in for a treat. And we was in terms of the story. As I mentioned, I loved it. It's a story about loss. It's a story about gain. It's a story about losing something you love and also appreciating what you have and where you are. And again, this is where I'm going to go into spoiler territory. But in this story, um, you know, all the characters lose something. Doctor Strange has lost something. America Chavez has lost something. Wanda has lost something, and it's all a story about how they can get it back, how they can go for this 2 hours and 8 minutes, um, to get back what they've lost. Wanda does it in Wanda's style. Being rave reckless, being I will basically Wanda's the villain. She is like, I will do whatever it needs to do to get what I need. I will get America Chavez. I'm going to steal her powers, and I'm going to go into the multiverse, and I'm going to get my children back. And Doctor Strange is very much the fact of, I was blipped out of existence because of Thanos. I came back. I've lost the Sorcerer Supreme. I've lost the love of my life. She's now married another man. I've now lost who I am. You know what I mean? I know we no longer really have control of my life. But like, he's in a stoop. He's very much a lost man. And then it's not really evident. It's one of those things that makes more sense if you've watched Spider-Man before you watch this. You kind of follow on Doctor Strange's story. You kind of understand where um, Doctor Strange is. So when this movie sort of begins, you sort of realize that he has lost so much, and that he's no longer the man that he was in sort of Infinity War and Endgame and in the first Doctor Strange movie. So he's lost stuff as well. And like I said, America Chavez, she's lost generally, both physically and literally. She's lost from her dimension because she has the powers to travel the multiverse. So she's lost in the multiverse. She can't get back home because she doesn't know where her home was. So she's just traveling from multiverse to multiverse, hoping that every time she jumps, she lands in her quote unquote universe, her home. She's lost her mothers, both her mothers when she was young, when she first unlocked her powers. If I remember correctly, it was a bee, and she got scared by a bee, and then that sort of triggered her abilities, that opened up a portal, and her mothers got sucked through that portal, and are lost somewhere in the multiverse, either together or split. And that's another thing where she's not just trying to find her way home, but she's also trying to find her mothers as she's traveling for the multiverse. So again, it's more so the fact of, I lost something, now I'm going to hopefully gain back the control to get more focus, so I know how to use my powers properly, so that I can best focus my powers in finding my way home and finding my parents, instead of doing it randomly. Because at this moment in time, when the movie first starts and you see America, that she doesn't really have she doesn't really have control of her powers. It's at random. She can't control it. It just sort of happens whenever she's in fear, kind of like a scapegoat. Like, I'm in danger. I've got to get out. Okay, portal opens up, and that's it. You're in another dimension. You're safe. You know. So there's for the main characters, Doctor Strange, Scarlet Witch, and America Chavez. It's about loss and gain. And that's how that was what I took out from this story, is that they lose it, but by the end of it, they gain more. And I'll get onto that bit in a minute when we start talking about the characters. But it's a very sort of, if you take away the Evil Dead stuff and the creepy stuff and the amazing visuals and all the things that happen, at the end of the day, the characters that you get in this story is a redemption arc. It's free. It's a redemption arc split in three ways. You know, um, Wanda loses kids from, if you watch WandaVision, sort of her story, which I'll get into that bit in a minute. Actually, I might put it at the end if I remember, or do it in a minute. Anyway, so you have Wanda and she's lost her kids and she's trying to find them. And you get the end result, which is lovely for her. Again, like I said, Doctor Strange, he lost the love of his life, lost his position as sort of Sorcerer Supreme. He's now basically just, and obviously what happened in with Spider-Man, he's now just the fact of like, can I actually do this? Am I the man who's meant to be me? You know what I mean? Am I a good person? Am I making the right choices? And then America Chavez, again, young girl, has immense power, doesn't know how to use it. She's lost her parents, lost her home world, and she's just trying to find her way back home by finding out how to use her powers, but also keep her powers away from those that are trying to use it, nefariously. So that's the story. To me, it's a story about loss. It's a story about gaining. And maybe if I watch it a few more times, maybe I might change my mind. But for my first impressions, that's what I got. You know, again, if you think differently, then that's all completely fair. I'm going to break this up into two because obviously it gives me time to have a break. So we've done the overview and we've done the story now. So the next section will be the characters and the amazing visuals, and then we'll end it off with the special mentions and the end. So going to take a break, going to take a breather, have a drink, slow down, relax, and cool down a bit because it's red hot in here. So we'll reconvene in a minute. All right then. Right, I'm back. That was a much needed break. I'm feeling a lot more loosey goosey now, a lot more relaxed. Had a nice drink of water. I hope you're also feeling relaxed as well. One thing I want to mention before I get onto the characters is, as I kind of a little bit sort of mentioned near to the end in the last section, was the fact about WandaVision and the where Scarlet Witch is now. And basically, what I want to say is, originally when Disney Plus came out and Kevin Feige and the MCU, when they were mentioning about that they're going to do sort of spin-off shows, that they said you didn't have to watch the shows to understand the movies that are coming. But if you do watch them, then you have a better understanding. So the way my brain works, again, I might be wrong, but the way my brain works, when I heard that, was okay. So even though I know I will watch them, if I miss them for some unknown reason, then that's okay, because then I won't feel like if I watch the film, I won't understand anything. You know what I mean? I feel like, I'll understand the greater meaning of the story in the movie you're trying to tell, if for some unknown reason I miss, say, the side show. So that was the idea that I had in my head. That was the story that they were telling. So that, in my mind, that's how it came out. But from watching this, it feels like to me that if you haven't watched WandaVision, then Wanda's whole arc and the references that they make, because they make a lot of references to West Point and what happened there with the Nexus event and her becoming the Scarlet Witch. If you haven't watched that movie, it feels like you're not going to be able to connect to Wanda so much, or Wanda's just going to come off as a psycho. Wanda's going to come off just as a sort of, she's gone rogue for some unknown reason. We don't know why she's gone rogue. She's on about having kids, but I don't remember Wanda ever having kids. You know what I mean? And like, my parents have watched it, but my dad doesn't want to watch it because it's black and white, even though we've told him like it's only black and white for the first few episodes and it gets good, but he hasn't watched it. So he wants to watch Doctor Strange. And I have a feeling that we're going to watch Doctor Strange, and my dad's one of these people who, when you're watching the movie, even if it's the first time you've ever watching that film, he's the kind of person to turn around being like, so what's that? What's happening? Who's that? And I'm like, I don't know. It's my first, you know what I mean? It's my first time watching it. I don't know. That's the kind of person my dad is when it comes to movies. So I know that's coming. So when I get around to watching Doctor Strange, I'm going to have to sit there, and my mum as well, because my mum quite liked WandaVision. We're going to have to sit there and we're going to have to try to explain to my dad, like, the story of Wanda, which, again, we shouldn't have to. The story you should just feel connected to said character. You don't have to sort of watch the spin-off or read the spin-off book or X, Y, or play the video games, or you know what I mean. You don't have to play the extra content to know what's going on in the main content. You know, um, so that feels a bit of a lie to me. Like maybe they meant it that way, and maybe because nobody told Sam Raimi that, and Sam Raimi was like, okay, this is the character I've got. I'm just going to go for it. You know, I don't know. I wasn't there. I'm not Kevin Feige. But it just feels like anybody who hasn't watched WandaVision, which potentiality could be quite a few people, because a lot of people, you know, have already got Netflix and already got Amazon Prime and all that, and they don't want to pay more for Disney Plus. And again, they probably as well heard the fact if you don't need to watch these TV shows to understand the movies, you know, they're going to go into sort of the films with that idea of being like, I don't need to watch it, and then watch it and come out confused or not enjoying the movie so much. Like my mum did it. Even though we watched Black Widow, um, my mum was like, when we watched Hawkeye, she was very much of like, well, who's that? And I was like, oh, well, no, that's Natasha's sister, you know. And she's like, oh, yeah, I remember, you know, because again, it was a long time since we watched Black Widow, and then we watched sort of Hawkeye, and again, they introduced her back in there, and it was very much the fact of, oh, okay. So, and again, Black Widow didn't do that very well, and there's high potentiality that a lot of people haven't seen Black Widow, so they won't know who Liliana is, you know. So they might be confused when she appears and who she is and why she's important and blah 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 blah. You know what I mean? So I hope that, you know, with you know the next movies coming in, especially because I'm guessing that, you know, the next thing I know that's going to connect with the TV shows is Miss Marvel. So when we bring in Miss Marvel into the Marvels movie, the Captain Marvel 2, um, that when she's brought in there, that you don't have to have watched the they're basically, hopefully I'm hoping that they fix their mistakes, that you don't have to watch the Miss Marvel show, which you should watch Miss Marvel, because Miss Marvel is amazing. But if you haven't watched it, you know, you can still sort of transition into the films quite well and enjoy it. That's why I just wanted to mention that fact. I hope that they fix that, and that they make that amend for the future. But that's neither here than there. You know, that's just again my 2 cents on that thought. But anyway, on to the characters. So as I mentioned, you know, this whole sort of story is about loss and about gain. About the character loses something and a character gains something. So as I mentioned, Doctor Strange, you know, he loses the ones he loves, but by the end of the movie, he gains better understanding of his position, not just as a sorcerer, but his position in the universe, in the multiverse, and who he is as a person, who the man he is now. Because as you can tell at the end, at Spider-Man, um, No Way Home, you know, he's a very much the fact of, he's still sort of jokey, sort of Doctor Strange, but you can tell that he's still quite sort of peeved off that he's no longer the Sorcerer Supreme. You can still tell that he is very sort of like, there's a lot of moments where like he doesn't feel, to me anyway, he didn't feel like the Sorcerer Supreme. He didn't feel like Doctor Strange. He felt like a man that was lost. You know what I mean? He was making mistakes. He was being reckless. You know, he was no longer the man that we knew. And then from moving on, taking that story arc of Doctor Strange there and where that story leaves off, to him saving the day, to then bring it over to Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, and we get a lot more sort of the story gets deeper there. We find out that, you know, the woman that he was in love with, she's now married to another man. You know, and the fact of every time he goes to another multiverse and he talks to other strangers, or he talks to other people who knew Doctor Strange, or he meets the woman that he's in love with, you know, in another multiverse, and he asks them the question of like, in our universe, was we able to ever figure out what we were? And every time it's the same answer, no. You know, so it's that sort of idea of like, no matter how hard I try, I've, you know, no matter every universe that I go to, we just don't work out. But the one constant, the one sort of paradox, the one thing that's always constant, is that in every single dimension, that or parallel universe that he goes to, he always loves her. No matter if they work or if they don't, there's always love there. And we saw that in What If, and we saw the Doctor Strange from the What If series, what that Doctor Strange went through, you know, to prove how much he loved her. you know. And it's the same here with this Doctor and with the other Doctor Strangers that we meet. Is um, even though it never works, there's always love there, you know. So he lost her, but he gains the knowledge that, you know, he'll always love her, and you know, she knows that, you know, he loves her, you know. So that's nice, but also he gets a better understanding of who he is. He gets a better understanding of who he is as a sorcerer, and who he is as a person, that he's a good person, that he's not just because every other strange is the same doesn't mean that he is the same. Kind of like the fact of, I know it's a weird sort of connection, but if you've watched Madagascar 2, I know this is going to get really weird, but if you watch Madagascar 2 and you get Marty, and he always thinks like he's black with white stripes, and then he meets the other zebras, and he realizes that he thought he was the only one that was black with white stripes, and it turns out all the other zebras are black with white stripes. You know what I mean? He was thought he was different, and it's that sort of idea. It's the fact of, you know, strange. You're like, not just strange, but me, you, everybody who's listening. We like to think that we are different. That who I am now is the most unique, different person ever to exist, which is true. We are in this world that we live in this universe. That is true. It's completely true. But who's to say that if I go to another universe, or if I go to another dimension, or another multiverse, whatever you want to call it, who is to say that I'm going to meet another Luke who isn't basically the exact same as me? Because it's potentiality. You know, the way the multiverses work, that each multiverse is the same but different in different ways. You know, in some universes, people choose to go right instead of going left, and in other universes, they go left instead of right. The world is completely the same. The only difference is people make different choices, which then make different realities, which then make different dimensions, and blah, blah, and it goes on and on and on. I'm not really going to get into it so much, it will be here all day, but that's basically how it works. And it's that sort of gain of the fact of like, I am Doctor Strange, but you're Doctor Strange, and we are the same. We make the same choices, we make the same decisions, we make the same mistakes. We are not different from anybody. We are the same person, you know. And again, the story sort of goes on where he learns the fact of, I am different, and I can make the right choices, and I can make the right choice, not just the choice that's for the good, but the choice that is good. You know, it's that idea of, it's not about being a good person. It's about doing, you know, it's about your actions. It's about doing good. So you can be the most horrible person in the world, but if you do good things, it doesn't make up for who you are, but actions reflect louder than words. You know what I mean? And that's just, again, it's that loss and gain again. You know, he loses who he is, but he gains a lot more rounded, a lot better sort of understanding of who he is and where he is in that moment in time, and it's quite beautiful. You know, so that's Doctor Strange. And again, America Chavez is closely the same. America Chavez, again, she loses her mothers, but she gains better understanding and control of her powers. You know, then she has when you see her at the beginning of the movie, she's a very scared sort of girl who's got these powers and she can't control them, and she can't trust Doctor Strange. She can't trust anybody. And as the story goes on, even though we don't get to see a lot of her, when we do get to see her, you can see that she evolves and changes. She begins to trust people. She begins to understand that she landed in a universe where people are different. She landed in the 616, the MCU, the universe that the MCU sort of resides in is 616. She landed in this dimension, and she knows um, that she's safe here, and that this Strange is different. But also, she also gains, like I said, more control of her powers. So when we see her, she's at the end of the movie, she is training with Wong, and she's training with the other sorcerers, not just to hone her abilities, but to focus them and to use them, so that, you know, she not just use them responsibly, because obviously she is a sort of a powerful multiverse being, and that, you know, if her abilities fall in the wrong hands, or if she misuses them, that, you know, she could basically destroy realities, in the blink of an eye, really, really easily. You know, so she's trying to do that, but also it gives you that sort of hope and, um, what more I'm looking for. Yeah, I would say, yeah, hope. Hope's the best word for it. It gives you more of that hope that she does find her mothers and she does find a way back. I don't know what they're going to do with her moving forward. So I don't know what they're going to do in the fact of, are they going to do a movie for America Chavez? Are they going to do a spin-off show? Is she going to show up in other films? I don't know as of yet. Like I said, they've already announced a lot of the movies that are coming in this phase for the next few years. So I don't know where she's going to appear again. If I had to put money on it, more than most likely, she will appear probably in another Doctor Strange sort of film, because that's where we leave her. We leave her training with the other sorcerers, and we're training with Wong. So there's a potentiality that that's where basically we're going to see her again whenever the next Doctor Strange movie will be. Probably, if I have to be kind, probably like 2028, 2029, most likely. So I don't know as to where we're going to see her again, but I look forward to seeing her again. Maybe again, because we're going in the route of multiverses with Kang the Conqueror, and he's a time traveling multiverse sort of villain. So maybe we'll need her abilities to help travel the multiverse to multiverse, stopping Kang. Maybe potentially, who knows? We might, like I said, we might see her in Ant-Man 3, Quantumania. Fingers crossed. I like her character. I love the actor, and I look forward to seeing where they take her even more. Like I said, where we've left her, she's gained a lot, but she's still learning. So I just want to see what happens next. Also, the fact that she's a really, really cool character in the comic books. So yeah, fingers crossed we see more of her. And finally, look, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of amazing characters, but these are the main three characters that actually have loss and gain. The rest sort of don't really lose a lot, apart from losing their lives. Again, that sounds like I'm making a joke, but it's true. Wong is again, is a great character, but it's the fact of Wong is a badass. So far, actually, if I'm being honest, so far in Phase 4, Wong has been the main sort of overarching sort of the guy that links a lot of these movies together. He was in Shang-Chi. I don't think he was in Eternals. He was in Spider-Man. He was here, and he feels like the archetype. Wong feels like kind of like the Tony Stark sort of character, where he brings people together. He lets he sort of, now that the MCU is going a lot more cosmic, a lot more sort of mystical, that he is now, as the Sorcerer Supreme, he's now taking a lot more mainstay, which I like that. So there's not really a lot to say about Wong. He's just Wong. He's a badass. Enough said. Wong is Wong. Wong is amazing. I love him. I love his character. But the next sort of character on the list that I want to sort of mention is obviously Scarlet Witch. So I left the best till last. In this movie, like I said, she's the villain. She goes full on psycho. She goes full on mental. She's the reason a lot of what's happening in this movie basically happens. It started the movie, you don't understand. She's working from the shadows, and then when she reveals herself, she's trying like, I'm giving you the opportunity to move out of the way, and to give me America Chavez, and then we'll just part ways, and that's it. And obviously, Doctor Strange being Doctor Strange, she's like, no, I can't do that, and then just sets in motion the scariness, the creepy, the Walking Dead moments. There's a moment where like she's using the mirrors to attack people and to kind of kill people, and there's this one scene where she comes out of this shield, and she comes like the only way I can explain it, some kind of Walking Dead mixed in with the Thing. She comes in and her body's all contorted, kind of like if you watch It, the It Chapter 2, where they're in the old house, and you've got the refrigerator, and the refrigerator opens, and then there's Pennywise, but he's all contorted and he's all sort of jumbled up, kind of like pretzelized, And then as he starts to stand up, his head spins around, his arm flicks around, his hands, his feet, his legs, and he kind of stands there, and then he kind of puts himself together like a jigsaw, that sort of thing. And that's kind of what happens there as the Scarlet Witch is coming through this shield, like her neck's the wrong, like twisted, like full 180. Her arms are backwards. It's like I thought she was going to come out, very much of like a spider. It's very much a visuals like that, and I'll get into the visuals in a minute. But the Scarlet Witch in this is just insane. She is, the character development that we've had with the Scarlet Witch is just been so fantastic. Again, I feel like if you haven't watched WandaVision, a lot of this is going to be lost on you. and I feel like that it's going to get to the point where she just feels insane. Whereas if you've watched the WandaVision, it makes a lot more sense, her reasoning behind what she does. Like, it's still insane, don't get me wrong, but her reasoning behind what she does still makes a lot more sense than it does if you haven't watched WandaVision. Because like in this, like I said, she loses her kids in WandaVision, and at the end of WandaVision, you see her with the Darkhold, you see her getting more powerful, and you can see her sort of looking out for her kids, looking out, trying to find her kids. And the Darkhold allows you to see into other dimensions, allows you to see into other universes. And they call it, I think it's called, it's like day walking. I think it's called day walking or phase walking. I missed the name. I wish I caught it and wrote it down. But basically, the idea is kind of like sleepwalking, but you possess another person's body in another dimension. That person being you, being yourself. So I could only possess myself in another dimension, and I could make effect and change in that world. So for example, I could be like a millionaire in another universe, and I could make myself spend all that money till I'm broke, and then I could just pull out, stop possessing my alter self, and then leave my alter self poor and with no money. I've effectively changed that universe, but without changing my own. And that skill is used a lot, especially by Wanda in this, and used to a fantastic effect by Doctor Strange at the end, which I will get into when I get into the visual effects. But like I said, she's lost a lot. She's lost so much. It's so traumatic. Like, I remember watching WandaVision, and I was tearing up at the end of the final episode when you just saw how much she'd gone through. I knew this was the direction that they were going for. I knew that they were using the House of M storyline to a point, about Wanda going crazy and Wanda just killing everybody and trying to sort of get back to sort of. Obviously, I don't want to spoil the House of M, but in this, it's the fact of she's killing everybody no matter who's in a way to get to her kids. And in a way, it's quite beautiful, really. It's psychotic, but it's quite beautiful. Just, yeah, I can't really explain it. Maybe I feel like I'm sounding crazy by saying her being psychotic and being insane and killing people is quite beautiful. Maybe I am crazy, but it's just how they do it is quite nice. But like I said, it's not just the fact she loses a kid, but she also gains the knowledge that they will be loved. Through this whole sort of movie, Wanda says it, Wong says it, America Chavez says it. They all sort of reinforce that idea of like, can't you just be happy knowing that just because you can't have them, that they are happy, that they exist? You know what I mean? Just be happy for the fact of they're happy. you know. And in the end, it takes another Wanda to sit down with our Wanda, or Scarlet Witch, to sit down with her and just say to her, like, understand and know that they will be loved, that I will love them, that I will love them just as much you love them now. I will protect them with all my heart. They are my children. I love them. And that's quite beautiful. That's quite lovely. you know. And then how it all ends with Wanda, you know. Yeah, it's nice. Again, I sound psychotic, sound crazy for saying it, but granted, for everything that she does, and she has some of the best moments in the movie. A lot of the moments that have had my sort of mouth to the floor, like my jaw was gawping. I was gawping all the way through. My mouth was open. There was even parts in this film where I was on the edge of my seat. I was on the edge of my seat, mouth a gawk, and I could not believe what I was seeing. This movie, especially at one moment, this movie has 3 to 4 end-game deaths. You know, all done by the hands of Scarlet. She has some of the best moments, but because I watched WandaVision, I could relate to her character so much more. I could understand what she was going through. I could understand as to why she was doing what she was doing, and I fell in love with her more because I could tell that she was a broken character. So when you meet her at the beginning of this movie, you can see in her facial expressions and the way her eyes would twitch and the ways her mouth would twitch and her body and the way she presented herself. She was a broken woman who you could tell from the events of WandaVision to the beginning of this movie, that she has tortured herself with trying to make contact and find her children, but always being a dimension away. Being so close but yet so far that she can see them, she can hear them, and she every time she goes to sleep, she has the same dream. She has the same sort of reality, seeing them grow up. But every time she wakes up, it's a nightmare because she's not with them. But also the fact of the Darkhold itself. The Darkhold takes a toll on the user, on the person that reads it. So even if you read one page or you read every page, it's going to take a toll on you. And you can tell it's taken a toll. It's pardon the pun, but it's bewitched her mind. You know what I mean? It's taken control over her. So she is now, I hate to use it, but she is crazy. She's wacko. She's gone doolally. But she's still righteous. Like every villain is the hero in their own story, because they don't feel like what they're doing is wrong. What they're doing is right. In her mind, her viewpoint and her sort of leading goal is to get my children no matter what. Forget the fact they already have a mother, that they already have another version of me. I would deal with that when I get to it. My main goal at the moment is getting to them no matter what. And in any other movie, if you take out the killing and you take out the psychoticness and you have that storyline of a mother trying to travel a long distance to get into her two kids, it's a very beautiful story, and I'm sure we've seen that story many times before, but it's done in such a way here that it's different, it's unique, it's psychotic, but it's scary, because it would be in real life. I wouldn't want to get in front of a mother who lost her kids. I wouldn't. There's no amount of power in this earth that would stop a mother trying to get to her children. There's not a power on this earth that would stop any mother. I believe that wholeheartedly. So and when you have Scarlet Witch and she has powers, and she has the power to change and shape reality how she wants it, you're screwed. She is the ultimate villain. And in the comic books, against Scarlet Witch, she is an alpha mutant. Obviously, we don't use the word mutant in the MCU because we don't have the X-Men, but she is an alpha level threat, probably even more than alpha level threat. She is one of the most powerful mutants in the X-Men. Again, we don't really use that because, again, we don't have the X-Men in the MCU, but still, she is a very powerful, enhanced person. So you take the fact of who she is and the losses she's gone through, as well as also losing Vision as well, because Vision was her counterweight. Vision would be, okay, Wanda, calm down, relax. And the Vision was the guy who could calm her down, who could stop her getting to this point. And I do believe that if, Vision was still around, Wanda would never get to this point. Wanda wouldn't be the person that she is when we meet her in Doctor Strange 2. But like I said, for all the loss that she goes through and all the story arc that we've had since we met her in Age of Ultron, that it's a fantastic story. Like, it isn't over. I'm not saying her arc is ended. I don't believe that for at all. But it's a lovely, fascinating sort of arc that we've had for this character, and it's paid off so well here. And she's gained the fact of that they are loved, but she also understands that she's become too psychotic. She's become too powerful, so she entombs herself. Literally, both figuratively and literally, she shuts herself off. She destroys every single Darkhold in every sort of universe, and she entombs herself, buries herself, so to speak. Now, do I believe that she's dead? No. She might have buried herself, but my rule is, and it's the same. This is the same rule for a lot of things, especially specifically in comic books. If you don't see the character die on the page, the character is not dead. Okay, it's as simple as that, right? We saw her we saw the building fall on her, but we didn't see her impaled. We didn't see her squashed by a boulder, one hand hanging out, to let us know she's there. None of that. It was the building was coming down, cut to and the outer building shot. So we have a shot of the fortress that she was in, and then we get a spark of a red flash, and that's it. So my theory is that she didn't kill herself, that she kind of transported to somewhere else, kind of to live a secluded life, to kind of live a life of like a monk sort of life, kind of a life of what's the word? It starts with an S. Starts with an S. Oh God. Oh, I've lost it. Starts with an S. I can't find it. Oh, it'll come to me. I'm sure if you're probably listening to it right now and you're screaming down the screaming at your phone or your stereo, being like, "It's so and so," and if that's the word, and I'm sure if it starts with an S, that's it. You're correct. That's the word I was going for. Solace, solace. That was it. If that was the word you're looking for, congratulations, 10 points. Can't spend it on anything, but I'm going to give you 10 points. But she's the whole like solace, just kind of on her own. So that's where we leave her. So that's the characters. Like I said, there's a lot more characters that sort of show up. A lot of side characters, that sort of thing. But these are the main three characters that really have a huge impact on the world and on the story. And overall, so I was going to split this into another section talking about the visuals, but I feel like I'm going to, because I've already talked about the characters for 29 minutes. So I'm going to leave the characters to their own section, and then we're going to sort of do elsewhere. So that's the characters. That's my feeling of the character. That's where they are now, and that's where we leave them at the end of this film. So let's move on to the visuals now, shall we? Right, so next, the visuals. Well, really, there's not really much to say about the visuals other than they are amazing. They're awesome. They're epic. They are. They're basically what I would imagine an acid trip to be. It is very much sort of trippy, hippy dippy. It great English, Luke. Speak English. You were born in England. Speak English. Right. It's not it great. It was great. Sorry. Put that on a t-shirt. It great. The end. But no, they are fantastic. The visuals are amazing. Like I said, when Sam Raimi got brought into this, I knew that it was going to, especially with the mist. Like I said, I know I'm reiterating what I've already said, but I knew that he was going to go in the direction when you have the fact of the mystical arts and you've got Doctor Strange. And if you've read any Doctor Strange comic book, you will know how sort of trippy, how dark, and how sort of spooky and scary they can get. I love Doctor Strange comic books. In my opinion, they're underrated, and more people should read Doctor Strange stories because they're amazing. But I knew when Sam Raimi came on that we were going to go down that route of like the Evil Dead, of the what's the Evil Dead film where it goes very medieval, Army of Darkness. That was sort of the routes that it was going to go down. So when I watched the movie, and you had the amazing creature designs, the amazing way the spells look, the curse and the hexes, the way WandaVision just looks at every single scene of WandaVision. Like Elizabeth Olsen's a credible actor, but just the way that she was directed, the way the camera angles on her face and the lighting, everything just made her look more creepy without doing anything apart from a facial feature. Again, it's perfect acting, perfect directing, perfect camera work, perfect lighting. When everything's perfect, it just works. Minimalistic scenes work when everything else works. The less you can do with the actor, but everything else works in tandem, the more emotional the scene is. Again, it's one of those things that you have to actually see, then actually me describe. But if you see this movie and you see how Wanda's face are, or the way Wanda looks and the way the Wanda travels through the air, it is very creepy, especially when we meet the Illuminati and when she's basically doing everything that she's doing there. But the visuals in this, it's Marvel-esque, but also it's Army of Darkness, and then it's Evil Dead, and then it's like very Spider-Man-y. The visuals are amazing. Like I mentioned, that one part where she just comes out of the it's like it's a shiny metal shield, you know. But because there's the reflection, kind of like the angels from the Weeping Angels from Doctor Who. Because there's the reflection, she can use it. She just comes through the reflection. I thought she was going to come out backwards, like a spider, head tilted up. It was really spooky. This whole movie, like every time Wanda was on the screen, I thought, "Fuck, that's it, we're done," because she was creepy, she was scary. Again, the amazing acting by Elizabeth Olsen. but just the visuals that accompanied her and the visuals that happened around it. And then we got to meet all the other strangers. And there's a moment where America Chavez sort of takes Strange through loads of different multiverses in quick succession. And while they're going through these different realities and the styles and the graphics change, it's going around like a clock, so that the visual is spinning, the camera's spinning as they're going around, as they're tumbling through different dimensions. So I'm there turning my head as far as it can go without causing myself serious injury, breaking my neck. And I'm just looking at these different things. And we kind of got it when we watched the first Doctor Strange, where like the ancient one touched his inner eye and sort of took him on this sort of this psychedelic journey where he went outside of his body and went into his eyeball and all that. It was like that, but times 10. You know what I mean? It was very psychedelic. We had a cartoon world. We had a world that was made out of paint. We had a world that was had dinosaurs, and we had a world that like very like high, 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 high. Stop saying high. Stupid. Yeah, very high concept sci-fi world. You know, full of like very futuristic with tubes and metal and everything. We had worlds that were desolate, and we had worlds that weren't even worlds. They were just sort of gas, like I can't even explain it, balls of gas and just very trippy, you know. And each time, every time we went to these new worlds, sometimes they would, like when they went to a cartoon animated world, you know, Doctor Strange would be animated and cartoon, and they went to a world that like I mentioned, that was paint, you know, insane. um Again, these visuals, I'm like, I want to visit every single one of those universes. I want to know why there's a universe that, like, what happened to make a universe out of paint. You know, I want to go to the cartoon. I wish they had stayed in the cartoon universe a bit more. You know, just to see what other sort of things going on. But when we reach the world that we're living in, like they make a joke out of the fact of, again, this sort of the world design as well. It's fantastic when they went to sort of a universe, how everything looked the same, but you could tell everything was a lot was different than what we know it. There's a lot of plants, there's a lot of greenery. People go on cross like street lights. People cross the street on red, and cars go on green. Again, it's very strange. Um, it's like I said, cars, like I mean, cars go. Okay, so it's cars go on red. People walk on green. That's it. See, I've got myself confused because man, my brain is hot wired this universe. But if I went to another universe and it was like, oh yeah, this looks like just like mine, and I go across the street and get run over because I walked on a red light when actually I should have walked on a green light, you know. And again, while you with America Chavez, she sort of tells Doctor Strange, is like, first rules are like multiverse hopping, but don't pretend like you don't know anything. Just because this world looks exactly like your own, it's completely different, you know. Um, it's great, you know. And also we learn about her as well, but the visuals are just amazing. You know, when we see the other Avengers and we look at the other sort of Avenger costumes, and we see the other sort of other Doctor Stranges, other Stevens, and how their outfits are somewhat the same but are a bit different. You know, maybe one Doctor Strange was like, I don't like red, I like blue, and he has his cape blue instead of red. You know, again, it's not different, but it is different. You know what I mean? It's not a big difference, but it is. And I just like that sort of the visuals about it, how things change, how there's a moment where Scarlet Witch attacks Doctor Strange and his cloak gets damaged, and he gives it to I forgot her name now, the lady he's in love with. I forgot her name. Is that bad of me that I forgot her name? It is bad of me, isn't it? Christine. That's it, Christine. I didn't just Google that at all. You're lying. You didn't. I didn't. Um, but no, Christine. You know, he gives it to that universe's Christine, and her universe's Stephen Strange had died, but they still had the cloak, and they never make mention to it. I was hoping that they would make mention to it, but she ended up fixing Strange's cloak with a piece of her Strange's cloak, which was blue. So you've got Strange's cloak that's red, but then you had this patch on the back that's blue. And I thought that was a nice sort of neat sort of, if like, it's one of those things, if you were paying attention you notice it, sort of thing of like, you notice what color his cloak was, and then you notice the fact of because they use that material to fix his, and I thought that was just nice. Also, it works as well. The one patch of blue on all of red, you think it wouldn't work, but it looks quite well. um But like again, everything just looks nice and everything just pops. And when it's scary, it's scary. When it's visually sort of pleasing to the eye, it just works. You know, you have the symmetry. Sam Raimi's a fantastic director. He's not just in directing, but also directing creatively what he wants. You know, so visually what he sees in his mind and how he wants it to look. He does a fantastic job in all of his movies at representing that. Any movie you've watched of Sam Raimi, um, 9 times out of 10, what you see on screen is what he originally planned and saw in his mind. He has a good job with it. He has a good visual eye for visual effects and for visual set design and costume design and so on and so forth. So it all just works. And again, that just adds into the fact of the story is just amazing and this film's amazing. As you can tell, I'm gushing. I love it. You know, I really, really do. Um, but overall, my final thoughts on the film, sort of wrap it up now. Um, yes, it's very different, but I love where this phase in the MCU is going. You know, it's more dark, it's more comic book accurate. You know, it's going a lot more, as I said at the beginning, it's going a lot more in the direction of, you know, we now live in a world where superheroes have had their run. Like the superheroes are still around and superheroes are still loved and admired, but they've had their run of being the golden age, shall we say, the pinnacle of what a hero can be. You know, in the first 3 phases. Phase 4 is after the snap. Granted, you know, Thanos came and snapped everybody away, and then a couple of years went by, and then the Avengers came back together, and they defeated Thanos, and they brought everybody back. You know, that's great and all, but again, as you've seen in the TV shows and as you've seen in the movies since, you know, this blip has took a toll on a lot of people. You have the one side of people where it's the fact of Thanos was right, you know, that now when there was less people, you know, there was enough to go around. Everybody had jobs, everybody had money, everybody had what they needed. Everybody who was still here, their lives were good. And then when the snap happened and everybody came back, it went back to normal. So a lot of people that were successful either got to stay successful or they didn't stay successful. And the people that were successful and that were bleaked out are no longer successful. So now a lot of people are on the fence of like, was Thanos right and all this and that. Obviously, us knowing the true events of what happened, as fans, we would say, well, yeah, you know, Thanos was wrong, and the Avengers did the right thing. But again, you have to see it the perspective of the people who actually live in that world, and you can see their different perspectives. So we're in a world where the snap happened. You know, we're in a world where people are still sort of reeling from what happened and sort of getting used to the fact of what aliens are real and that at any moment, you know, I could blip out of existence. So it's that idea of the golden age of being a hero. Of not just being a hero, but living in a superhero world it's not stale, but it's no longer the peak pinnacle of what it was. You know what I mean? A lot of people are a lot more sort of weary of heroes, and some people love them, some people hate them. So how does that world work? How do the people in that world work? The people that survived the snap, the heroes that survived their snap, how do they now go on? You know, how have they changed? And I'm sure that when we see like She-Hulk and we saw more of Bruce Banner, then we'll understand there. And when we see more of when we see all the other TV shows, and we saw it in Hawkeye and the Hawkeye show and Kate Bishop. We saw it there, and I'm sure we'll see it in all the other movies and TV shows to come. But like I said, we're now in a world where the snap has taken a toll on everybody, and it will take a toll. So, and even when we get the next big bad, whoever it's going to be, I have a feeling it's going to be Kang. But whatever's coming next will be Ostrom, the judge, and all that. We're going into a direction that's a lot more darker because the world is darker. You know, people don't like it because it's no longer sunshine and rainbows. Because you know, Affinity War happened. You know, a lot of people died. A lot of people lost their lives. A lot of people lost loved ones. Yes, a lot of those people came back, but the world's different. The world's changed now, and so with change comes different stories, different people, different heroes, new heroes, but with different twists. You know, darker storylines. So yeah, my final thoughts are: I like where it's going. I'm glad it's going in this direction. I can understand as well. I'm not blind to it. I can understand why people weren't weren't too happy with this movie. Why a lot of people thought it missed the mark. I get it. And again, I've never argued the fact of people not liking something that I like. You know, when I'm recording this today when it came out on Disney Plus. This is my first time seeing it, and I told a few friends, and they all came back to me the same sort of thing of like, oh, I liked it, but it wasn't for me. It's not what I expected, or it's not what I'm used to. And I never argued it. You know, I'd always say, well, I liked it, and obviously with my friends, I'm quite lucky with my friends. It, you know, we're quite sort of what's the word? Aggrieve, aggrieve, is that even a word? We're very much the fact of, it's not argumentative, it's the fact of, if you like something I don't, that's okay, as long as, we both like something and we're both happy. That's all that matters. That's what I quite like about a lot of my friendships. But never am I to one, if you like something that I hate or vice versa, never to argue it, because there's no point arguing. So I'm not blind to it. I understand why people don't like it, and even though I try to stay away from reviews as much as possible to kind of avoid spoilers, um, I did see a few, and I can understand. And from watching this, I can see why certain things would bother people. But all I can give you is my 100% honest opinion. And honestly, after watching it, I enjoyed it. I loved it. Again, it might change. Like, after when I release this on the Thursday tomorrow, and by maybe by Saturday or Sunday, or by next week, I've gone, you know what? It's not as good as I thought. Views can change, people change, times change. So that's a possibility. But as I stand now, of watching it today on the Wednesday, the 22nd of June, I liked it. I enjoyed it. Um, Really, really good film. I'd happily watch it again. I like where they're going with the MCU. And I hope that they keep this up. I hope they keep up this sort of story arc. Well, not even story arc, but like story, this darkness, this more maturity, this sort of world that's different, this world that's changed. I hope they carry on that sort of arc and build upon it. And I feel that Doctor, not Strange, Thor: Love and Thunder is going to carry that torch on, because Taika Waititi has done that for a lot of his other movies, as well as he did that for what's it called? Thor Ragnarok, as I mentioned at the beginning, all the way his stories go. So, pardon me, I need a drink there. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, that's my overall thoughts. Like I said, I enjoyed it. Before I end it, I do want to give a quick sort of special mentions here at the end. Mentioning some of the characters that I wanted to give their own sort of light. Again, like I said, spoilers. Again, if you've seen the movie, you know what characters I'm going to talk about. But I wanted to leave them to their end for their own sort of thing. But we got John Kosinsky as Reed Richards, Mr. Fantastic. I've wanted Reed Richards in the MCU for a very long time. But the thing is, when you bring in the Fantastic Four, it's not easy to do. Because you can't just slot them in. You have to have a reason to them. We saw Fantastic, the most recent Fantastic Four movie, had a great first act, but the second and third just fell flat in its face. You add the original Fantastic Four movies that I grew up on. Again, they were all right. I maybe roasting the glasses because I grew up with them, but I quite liked them. But again, they didn't do that well at the box office, and the second movie wasn't as great. And they one of my favorite characters is Galactus, and they really destroyed Galactus by turning him into a giant cloud, which I will never forgive them for doing that. So Fantastic Four is not an easy thing to do, but when they mentioned that they were gonna when somebody made like a meme, we'll say it's a meme, but like somebody sort of changed the look of John Krasinski's character in I think it was Zero Dark 30. I think that was a movie that he was in. But basically took his character from that, but put like white lines at the side of his head, put him in the blue Fantastic Four uniform, and be like, okay, this is Reed Richards. I was like, you know what, sold. He looks like what I think Reed Richards would look like. You know what I mean? So when I watched, I'll be honest, it was spoiled for me. Because again, I didn't watch it when it came out in cinemas, and I tried to avoid spoilers as much as possible. It was kind of hard not to. So I knew he was going to be in this movie. But even so, when I saw him and when I heard him talk and I heard him speak, and I heard him basically just, even though we don't see him for a lot, for him just sort of being the leader of the Illuminati, you could tell he was the very forefront, the leader, but very much like he embodied the role of Reed Richards so well in such a short time that I was like, when you do Fantastic Four, I want John Krasinski. I don't know what you've got to do to get, even if you have to, like, even if he wants to direct it, you know what I mean? If it's a fact of John Krasinski's like, I'll only be Reed Richards if I get to direct it. He did a fantastic job with Quiet Place 1. I haven't watched Quiet Place 2 yet, but he did a fantastic job with A Quiet Place. He obviously knows what he's doing in terms of characters and story and family. Get him in it. Get his wife. I'm blanking on his real life wife's name at the moment, but she's a fantastic actress. Get her to be Sue Storm. Boom, done it. I don't know who you're going to take Johnny and who you're going to get to play the Thing, but I don't care. Make it happen. You know, in the few seconds that we saw him as, you know, Reed Richards, the few minutes, I was instantly like, I'm sold. That's it. I don't know how you're going to do it, Kevin Feige. Like, they have mentioned there's going to be a Fantastic Four movie. That is in the line of this phase. When it's coming, we don't know. So at the moment, they're still jumping around the whole. Like, the person who was meant to direct it is no longer directing it. He's now directing a Star Wars movie. So we currently has no director. Whoever they get to do it, whether it be John Krasinski or somebody else, all I say is please, please, please make John Krasinski Reed Richards. That's all I want, you know, and I'll be happy. The movie could be a complete flop. I don't care. I just want John Krasinski to be Reed Richards because it just works. And when he mentions the fact that he has kids, like, that's a deep cut. That's something that a lot of, you know, unless you're a Fantastic Four sort of fan, you don't know. But Reed Richards and Sue Storm end up having kids, and their kids are incredibly powerful. And it's just when he mentioned the fact of I have kids of my own, and then Wanda basically says to him of like, do they have a mother? And he goes, yes. And I'm like, yes. Like, I knew Sue Storm was going to exist in this universe because he's here. But that means the Fantastic Four exists. That means Sue Storm and the Thing and Johnny, they all exist. And they've got the kids. I was just getting excited. And then obviously, you know, he gets killed. He gets turned into Biscotti. But still, visually beautiful, but very much like, oh, you just killed him. Very sad. So, you know, you have that one. So you get John Krasinski, Reed Richards. I want a Fantastic Four. I don't know how you're going to do it. Please do it. Then you get Patrick Stewart comes back as Charles Xavier in his little sort of yellow goat cart. I'm not really sure what it is. It's like a wheelchair goat cart. I love it. I think it's fantastic when he's rolling around in that. And when you hear his voice, you're like, maybe we should tell him the truth. And then it comes out. It goes like that was my childhood. You know what I mean? That was like, I remember watching reruns because when I was born, the TV show had already been out. You know, I was born too late for the TV show, but I remember watching reruns of the show, and it was I was like, ah, you know, and then he comes out in his suit and his bald head and he's in his little yellow sort of fucking, I don't know, goat cart. Oh, it was great. I loved it. And then how he dies. Oh God, that how he dies. His death is probably the one that got me the most shocked of just like how they killed him. I didn't see it coming at all. It was, again, I know that Kevin Feige wants to do the X-Men. I have no idea how he's going to fit the X-Men into the current MCU unless he does the X-Men in another universe. And I know Patrick Stewart, he probably, you know, probably won't come back to play Charles Xavier in the MCU, which is completely fine. Get somebody else or bring back James McAvoy, whatever they decide to do. But it was just nice if this is going to be like, I'm one of my favorite comic book movies is Logan. That movie killed me, and I said at the end of that movie, like, if this is the last time we're going to see Charles, it's sad, but okay, you know, that's fine with me, you know. And I ironically, he dies in that one as well, quite brutally. And it's the same in this one, the fact of, you know, if this is the last time we're going to see Charles, then okay, I'm happy with it. But again, it's the fact of we see him and he dies, and it's like, oh, why can't we get one last view at Charles Xavier, Patrick Stewart, Charles Xavier? And why does he have to die brutally? You know, he in X-Men 3, The Last Stand, the last time we thought we were ever going to see him, when that movie came out, he dies brutally at the hands of well, not even hands, against the mind of Jean Grey. He gets obliterated into tiny pieces. Obviously, we know that he doesn't. But why is it every time the last time we see this man, he's getting killed? It's not right. You know, Patrick Stewart deserves more. But there's that, right? So again, I don't. He probably won't come back for an X-Men movie, but it's just nice that we got to saw him again. Then we got to see Bruce Campbell. He makes a cameo. He makes a cameo in every Sam Raimi project. He originally Bruce Campbell's character in Spider-Man. Here's a bit of trivia for you. For those of you that stay to the end, bit of trivia for you. Bruce Campbell was originally going to be Mysterio, and the idea was that because you saw him in Spider-Man 1, Spider-Man 2, and Spider-Man 3, the idea was that he was manipulating Spider-Man's life as Mysterio does. So when Spider-Man 3 comes along, Spider-Man 4, that he was going to be the main villain. He's like, I've been here all along. I've been, you know, been at moments in your life where certain big moments in your life. He was there when he first became Spider-Man doing the wrestling. I can't remember where he appears in Spider-Man 2, but he's in Spider-Man 2. In Spider-Man 3, he's there when he's trying to wearing different costumes, different characters all the time again. Mysterio, originally in the comic books, he was an actor, and he takes the idea of being an actor as well as being sort of stage performance, stage magic, and like movie magic and stuff like that, and use it to make illusions. So the idea was the fact if he plays different characters, looks like different characters, and then in Spider-Man 4, he was going to be one of the big bads. So that's what it was kind of leading up to, and obviously we never got that movie, sadly. But coming back to Doctor Strange, that was a bit of a side quest for anybody who stuck to the end. But in this, he plays like he plays like a character who's like it's a very silly character, very much the fact of he's like Doctor Strange, gonna squirt him with some I think it was mustard, and Doctor Strange basically puts like a hex or even a curse on him that makes him just slap and punch himself in the face. And it's kind of funny when you know sort of the character with the whole thing about his hand from the Evil Dead, and it was just kind of funny. And he again, Bruce Campbell's amazing at doing slapstick, so it just works fine. Again, it's only a short scene. It's there mostly for Sam Raimi fans, but it was just nice to see it. Like, hey, I get it. That's funny. That's cool. Also, one thing I want to mention. I could mention the whole of the Illuminati, all they get shown. Black Bolt has an incredible death, but again, it's very much the fact of I didn't watch the Inhumans TV show, so I can't really relate to the character that's playing him because it's the same guy who played Black Bolt in the Inhumans TV show, but I never watched it because the TV show was apparently shit, from what I heard. So I never bothered to waste my time on it. And he only got one season anyway, so but he got a very cool death. Monica Rambeau, who was Miss Marvel in that universe, again, she was quite badass, but still very much of the she had a coolish death. But what got me is that I have a huge crush on Hayley Atwell. I will happy to admit it. There's not many celebrity women that I have a full-on crush for. In terms of no matter what movie they're in, I will watch them. Jennifer Tilly is another one. I don't know what it is about Jennifer Tilly, but Jennifer Tilly was like my first sort of celebrity crush, still is. But Hayley Atwell, I've loved that woman for many years, and so when she finally got the chance to be Captain Britain, like she was in the comic books, and we saw her in the What If, and she was one of my favorites in the What If, and then we got to saw her in live action, and she looks redonkulous, so sexy, so powerful. I love it. She was badass, and how she dies like that for me, next to Charles Xavier, was one of those sort of moments where I didn't cry, but I was emotionally struck with a wave of just like of sadness. I was like, oh my god, how can you kill my girl? How could you kill her like that? You know what I mean? She got sliced in half with her own shield. But honestly, it sounds bad, even though I love her to bits, and it was a really, really sad moment for me. Was the fact of my brain was like, I bet you Steve would have caught it. Like, it's such a dick thing to think of. Like, I love her to bits, and I love Captain Britain, and I love her as Captain Britain. But in my mind, it was like, Steve would have saw it coming. Is it bad of me to say that? Yeah, it's bad of me to say that. I shouldn't say that. But yeah, Hayley Atwell just looks incredibly sexy and powerful and amazing as Captain Britain. And I really, really hope, because I love Captain Carter. If you watched, there's a TV show. It's on Disney Plus, and I really recommend people watch it. It's called Captain Carter, or Peggy Carter even, or I think it's just called Carter. Originally, I think it was called Captain Carter, but they changed it to Carter for season 2. But if you go on Disney Plus and you type in Carter, you'll find both season 1, season 2, and it basically follows on from the events of Captain America 1, the first Avenger, of how she became the woman that she was who started up Shield. It's a fantastic show. Hayley Atwell does the fantastic job. You get to see Tony Stark's dad, and you get to see the original Jarvis. Fantastic show, very 40s and 50s s gangsters with super hip beans and stuff like that and spy stuff. Oh, it's amazing show. Sadly, it never got a third season, but I highly recommend anybody who's a fan of her character, who want more of her, to go watch Agent Carter on Disney Plus. Honestly, it's amazing. It'll blow your mind. Pardon me, but I really hope that we get to see more of Hayley Atwell as Captain Carter. I know they're doing a season 2 of What If, but I want another live action because I just feel like Hayley Atwell deserves it. Hayley Atwell is amazing in this role, and I just want to see her be a badass more. You know what I mean? That I just want that. So if I can get that, great. But that's it really for special mentions. Time for me to wrap things up because this has gone on for longer than I was planning. But I do tend to waffle, so that is a given. But let's wrap this up nicely, shall we? And that is that. That is all she wrote. So, as always, do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you feel like I was fair? Do you feel like I was wrong or right? Let me know, as always. There are things that I left out. I only really mentioned the things that were important to me or that interest me. The characters, the story, the visuals. But like this is a 2-hour and 8-minute long film. Let's call it 2 hours if we take out the 8 minutes of credits. It's about a 2-hour long movie. It's great. It's as long as it needs to be. But like I said, because it's 2 hours, there are a lot of things I missed out. But I like I said, I loved it. This film was really, this film was really, really good. I really enjoyed it, and I look forward to seeing where the MCU goes from here. Really, for me personally, it can only go up from here. If they keep this trajectory, whatever comes next is going to be fantastic. And I do believe that Thor: Love and Thunder is going to break the proverbial glass ceiling on the MCU and take us in. This movie's already taken us to directions and destinations that I never thought the MCU would go. But I just feel like Love and Thunder will just bridge that gap and just go further with it. So here's hoping. Like I said, I do feel like that movie is going to make a lot of people cry. It's going to be quite emotional, be quite sad. But I won't spoil what that thing will be. It's just a theory I have, and we'll wait till the film comes out until I watch the movie, and then we can make a judgment there. But that is all she wrote. I'm not going to say any more on it because I've already spent almost an hour talking about it. We're at the ending now. So, as always, time for the selfish plug bit before I end. So, again, if you agree with me or you disagree with me, let me know on Twitter at nerdstalgic_pod. You can find this podcast on Spotify. You can find it on Anchor, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music Podcasts, and also YouTube. If you go onto YouTube and type in the Nerdstalgic podcast and look for my flaming face, you'll find me there. Don't forget to subscribe and to like. If you're listening to this on YouTube, please subscribe, please like. It helps me a lot. And if you're listening on Spotify, don't forget to give me a star rating. What's a star rating? Well, it's quite simple. If you go onto my page on Spotify, underneath my name and underneath my picture, there'll be a little box with a star. If you press on that, it will give you an opportunity to rate the podcast from 5 stars to 1 star. 5 star being the best thing you ever heard in your life. 1 star being complete trash. Vogon's doing poetry. If you get that reference, good for you. You're obviously a Douglas Adams fan. But yeah, 1 star being bad, 5 stars being great. You don't have to do it, but if you do it, it helps immensely because the way Spotify works, the more ratings you have, the higher you go on the list, the more listeners you can get. And, it's all just to help the show grow. So if you like the show and you like what I do here, by all means, please help me out by liking and subscribing on YouTube and give me a rating here on Spotify. But that is proverbially completely 100% all she wrote. I'm going to leave you now to the rest of your day. I have been Luke, your host. Thank you for listening to the Nerdstalgic podcast, and I will catch you on the next one. So, see you later, guys. Bye bye.